Here's the 30-second lesson on what legends know. Never practice nunchucks in a crowded room. Never eat chole before a road trip. Always take your shirt off before you iron it. Don't take a call near a swimming pool. And don't forget, saving is not investing. Legends don't just save, they invest in mutual funds. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
National Interest today talks about who speaks for Bangladesh Hindus, and this is particularly in the context of the phone call between our Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Joe Biden, where he raised the issue of the safety of minorities, especially the Hindus in Bangladesh. By the way, let me also tell you, because many of you have been asking me the question in terms of how good our coverage of Bangladesh has been and whether we've invested enough time and attention in covering Bangladesh, the developments there. So, Ananya Bhardwaj, who you know well, one of our senior and stellar reporters, she's been there reporting from the ground. Today, she featured in a conversation with me in Cut the Clutter, so you can check out that episode. But once she is back, which should be early next week, she will also do an episode of Ask Me Anything. That's our new feature where our subscribers can ask questions to one of our key people. The first episode took place last week where TCA Sharad Raghavan, who's our editor for economics, he answered questions for our subscribers. So I would recommend it to all of you to ask questions and she will answer them. Now, I know that this is for our subscribers and subscription amount is a bit high. At the same time, those of you who have membership on our YouTube channel, we give you a bunch of benefits, and I keep telling you, we will keep increasing those benefits, also bring you as many of these subscriber benefits as possible. This new feature, Ask Me Anything, where you ask questions of our key people, is also available, is also extended now to members on our YouTube channel. So members, please do write to Tanushree, TANUSHREE, Tanushree at ThePrint.in. You will see the email on your screens as well, and also with the description. Do write to her, introduce yourself to her as a member on our YouTube channel, and this benefit will be extended to you as well. And those of you who are not members, please do take this YouTube membership. It doesn't cost you very much. It brings you quite a few benefits, and we'll keep adding to these. At the same time, it also enables us just to invest in the kind of coverage you've seen from us from Dhaka and Bangladesh from Ananya Bhardwaj there. This done, I will switch back to the theme of the week, which I set up earlier by asking the question, who speaks for Bangladesh's Hindus? In these frightfully prickly times, trifles tend to become controversies in our geopolitical debate. You could see the issue over the difference between the Indian and US readouts of the Narendra Modi-Joe Biden phone call earlier in the week in a similar light and dismiss it as a joke. After all, it's often the case that the two countries pick up different points for their own respective readouts of a conversation. If you just see the readout from Moscow on the Modi-Putin conversation and Delhi, the Moscow readout talks about Modi's visit to the BRICS summit to Kazan in October. India's does not. So these differences take place. That's why you could dismiss this controversy over the differences in the US readout and the Indian readout as a joke. And that's why, big deal, if Washington didn't mention Modi's concern over fate of Hindus in Bangladesh, grow up India. That grow up India admonition might apply, though for entirely different reasons. We will argue, in fact, that these reactions, widespread indignation in India, are no joke. This is serious business. The most serious is the fact that an Indian Prime Minister, and that too of a strong and stable government no less, needed to seek Washington's good offices to protect the Hindus next door to India. It triggers us into raising some important questions. For example, number one, do we remember when an Indian Prime Minister last called his American counterpart and sought his help to protect Hindus in our neighborhood? And by the way, India and America now have a very good relationship. We are essential strategic partners as we define ourselves to be. This is not the strained relationship which existed until the 80s. Number two, or the last time such a call was made asking any foreign power to control or restrain the situation any which way in our neighborhood. There have been calls aplenty to ask the world to restrain Pakistan from unleashing cross-border terror on India. But does India really care what the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan TTP or some 10 other Lashkars with fancy names and acronyms do with Pakistan, within Pakistan? Check out what the TTP is doing to the Pakistani army colonel they've kidnapped. You can even watch him growling in a video the TTP has tweeted. I will share a link with you with the description. You can also see some stills on one half of the screen as I talk. Number three, the question number three. Has India ever conceded that another power has any legitimate role to play in our immediate neighborhood, the subcontinent? Even something seemingly as minor as a Voice of America transmitter in Trincomalee had made us neurotic in the Indira era in the 80s about a foreign power finding a foothold in our region. Number four, Hindus have often complained of victimization in Pakistan and thousands have sought refuge in India. Tamils, mostly Hindu, were earlier driven out in lakhs from Sri Lanka. In Nepal, the Madhesis have often complained of discrimination and looked to India for support. Would India ever imagine calling Washington or the Europeans or the British to intercede there? The fifth and the final question follows then. Are we now admitting that the Americans have more leverage in Bangladesh than us? This when we issue almost 2 million visas a year from our High Commission and 4 consulates in Bangladesh. The simple answer to all these 5 questions is never, 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 and no. Those are the 5 answers. For decades now, in fact since 1971 December, India's larger strategic interest has rested on 3 principles. Here are the 3 principles. The first of these is India's territorial boundaries must not diminish any further, so no loss of territory. Second, India must have total autonomy over its nuclear weapons, or to use that euphemism, strategic assets. And third, the Indian subcontinent, which is the description we prefer over the think tank invented South Asia, is a zone of India's preeminence. If at all, stronger Indian governments would expand it. A shrinking of this zone of preeminent Indian influence is unacceptable. These 3 principles have been established, elaborated and strengthened over the past 53 years under 12 prime ministers from different political parties or coalitions, some strong like this one, some not so strong. The third of these principles is now under threat. This is not the India of the 1980s. Now India's economy is reaching $4 trillion. It's soon to be the world's third largest. It's the only nation outside the P5 to drive nuclear submarines, nuclear missile submarines, SSBNs. It has a key role in the Quad. It believes it has the moral authority and strategic weight to play peacemaker in Ukraine. That's why it's intriguing if its prime minister now wants his American partners to help protect the Hindu minority in Bangladesh. That's conceding to the Americans a preeminence India has always contested, resented and feared. It is true that the treatment of Hindus in Bangladesh is a troubling issue. This arose initially as a result of then Pakistan Prime Minister Liaquat Ali Khan failing to keep his part of the pact with Jawaharlal Nehru on each country's treatment of its minorities. This pact was signed in April 1950. Liaquat Ali Khan was assassinated soon afterwards in October 1951, and Pakistan then saw no sanctity in such sovereign commitments. Commitments went out with the man. In any case, they had assassinated the man. The large minority in Bangladesh, the large Hindu minority, today about 1.4 crores, has often been targeted in the past, sometimes in the course of domestic political turmoil and sometimes because of events in India. Significant examples of the latter are the Hazratbal incident in Srinagar in 1963 and the Babri Masjid demolition in 1992. Millions of Hindus, among the 10 million plus, 1 crore plus East Pakistanis who sought refuge in India during the genocide of 1971, chose not to return. Besides these, there had been multiple waves of the flight of Hindus, in the 1950s and 1960s. The fact, however, is that the exodus became a trickle in the 1970s and then mostly faded. The 15 Hasina years were the calmest for the Hindus, and some of them also found key positions in the power structure. Not enough, but some Hindus did find key positions in the power structure. In these years, even in these years, a riot and an attack was just a whisper away. In 2013, while Hasina was in power, in 2013, when the Bangladesh Supreme Court barred the Jamaat-e-Islami from contesting elections, the mobs turned on Hindus and on their places of worship. These are recorded, undisputed facts. It's also true that the Bangladesh government then cracked down, used a lot of firepower, police killed a lot of people in firings, and brought back calm quite quickly on the streets, but a lot of damage was done, a lot of death and destruction was caused, and the Hindus were targeted. These are recorded, undisputed facts. Even in the wake of a dramatic meltdown now, Hindus and their places of worship were targeted, as were symbols of Indian presence, including and notably the Indira Gandhi Cultural Center. Remember, Indira Gandhi it was who led India into supporting the Mukti Bahini and the Bangladeshi freedom movement and in the creation of Bangladesh. However, the interim administration spoke up at the highest level, maybe a bit late. They could have done it earlier, but they did. Muhammad Yunus himself spoke up to bring back some security quite fast. Once they spoke up, the security came in quite fast. That this administration acted with such alacrity, I would submit, was also because India spoke up strongly. The Modi government spoke up strongly. However nasty the anti-Indianism on the street might be in Dhaka, Bangladeshi elites know it is their most vital relationship. They cannot permanently annoy or harm India, although there are forces, especially on the Islamic right, among the various factions of the Islamic right, who might wish to do so. The basic point is that this response is evidence, this Bangladeshi response is evidence that India enjoys sufficient clout of its own to secure safety for the Hindus in Bangladesh. Then why that appeal to Biden? The Modi government will need to reflect on that. It was likely directed at the domestic audience that, look, don't think we are not bothered about the Muslims in Bangladesh. We even took up their cause with our friend Joe Biden. It is just that it is self-defeating and self-demeaning to believe that your Hindu constituency in India would be more reassured with you seeking Biden's influence in Bangladesh rather than using plenty of your own. As we highlighted earlier, it threatens that third postulate of your fundamental strategic imperatives, preeminence in the subcontinent. Nobody ever achieved or protected it by inviting the elephant inside your tent. That is what this phone call sounded like. How irritated do we get when other countries, including our neighbours and the OIC, Organization of Islamic Cooperation, lecture us on our Muslims? Does India now want to be the OIC equivalent of Hindu interests all over the world? That isn't the moral positioning for one wanting to be a Vishwamitra, friend to the world, if not yet the Vishwaguru, teacher to the world. Finally, how do you balance your domestic political needs with strategic interests? We Indians are not the only ones who pore over or overanalyze everything done or said about us in our neighborhood or in the rest of the world. The neighbors, all a fraction our size, track every word spoken in India. The raging anti-Muslim politics in Assam right now, Himanta Biswa Sarma's repeated use of the word Mia, which is a dog whistle for Bangladeshi origin Muslim, it won't help find a new balance in relationship with Hasina's successors or the public opinion in Bangladesh. Bangladesh has dumped Sheikh Hasina and Awami League for now. Are we dumping Bangladesh in turn? Hasina's debacle must not be India's. It cannot be India's debacle. It will be so unwise to keep moping and waiting for the Bangladeshis to come to their senses. A sovereign country will go where its people take it. We can't choose our neighbors, but we can choose to be the kind of neighbors we want to be.